Hello again, this is Gary Robinson with another edition of Pedal Talk, and today we have a very special guest. If you are a Colorado's Rockies fan or have lived in Colorado and been a fan of sports of any way, shape, or form, you've heard the name Jerry Schemmel. Jerry's been with the Rockies as the play-by-play announcer on radio since 2010. You'd recognize his voice. You'll recognize it as soon as he starts talking in a second, but he's also an avid cyclist of Avid Cyclist. He's done the race across America 2 times, once in the pairs, once in the singles, and we'll talk about that as well. He also was a survivor of a very tragic plane crash that he basically walked away from back in July 19th of 89, flight 232 out of Sioux City, Iowa. And we are really blessed to have him with us, and he's author of 3 books. So I'd like to welcome Jerry Schemmel to the stage.
8 seconds left. Looking to the right side high. Anthony's got it. Drives to his right. Pulls up the wing. Jump shots away. Yes! 3 seconds to go. Timeout, Phoenix!
Hey,
How you doing, Jerry?
I'm doing great, Gary. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This will be fun.
Thank you.
Sure.
So, been with the Rockies, still with them. You loving that?
Yeah, it's been the last couple of seasons been a little rough, but yeah, still with them. People ask me all the time, with a bad team, is it difficult to broadcast? And it's really not. It's still fun, Gary. It's more fun when your team wins, but it's still fun. And there's not been a day. I just did my 13th season. Not been a day game day that's gone by I wasn't excited to go to the ballpark. So totally blessed with that. I did the Nuggets before the Rockies, and so 30 plus years in the market, just completely blessed with my career.
That's awesome. And you are, in fact, right before you got on here, you were talking to me about a ride you did. You're quite a cyclist. What got you into cycling? And talk to us about some of the races you've done, especially the race across America.
Yeah, I made a crazy attempt back in my early 20s to become a professional triathlete. I thought I might have the talent to do it. I was the most unsuccessful professional triathlete you might ever have on this show, Gary. But the cycling part of that always was the most fun for me, and it just sort of stuck. And then really getting into cycling as I did as a crazy endurance cyclist was a result of the plane crash that I survived. Mm-hmm. I was looking for some kind of physical outlet to kind of deal with the PTSD that came along with that crash and everybody else. And you can only do so many counseling sessions and so many deep dives into why and what to do about it. But at some point, for me anyway, it was, I gotta do something physical because I need some kind of outlet. And I got back on my bike and it just felt great. It just felt right. It felt like it was meant to be for me. And I just started riding and didn't quit. And then I thought, well, the longer I go, the more I enjoy it. I'll do some rides for charity. And then in 2015, I did that 2-person relay, the race across America. So it all started really, to answer your question, Jerry, as a result of that plane crash you mentioned.
So you still ride today?
Still riding the lit. Yep.
So it's kind of like a Forrest Gump thing where he rode and then he ran farther. And next thing he decided to go all the way across the country.
That's pretty much it. Yeah. I thought about that, but yeah, that's it.
But you did it. Well, you attempted it once as a single. Mm-hmm. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah. 2021, which was the year for solo racers, only 3 people finished. I think there were 27 that started, and it was in the middle of that heat wave in June. Mm-hmm. And only 3 people made it. So that was probably the timing for that couldn't have been worse. I hadn't done any heat training. I'd planned to, and it didn't work out. And it was during COVID, so I wasn't doing the Rockies. So I trained really hard, but I just was not quite ready for that heat. And like I said, only 3 people made it that year. So I might try that again sometime. I'm not sure yet, but I gave it a shot, made it to the second day, and then got knocked out.
And then how many years later did you do the pairs?
Before that I did the relay in 2015. Okay. So I did that first.
Okay.
And we actually won the 2-person relay in 2015. And then so it was 6 years later that I tried solo ran.
So what was your time on the pairs?
We did. I think we were a little less than 7 days. I think we were at 6 days and 22 hours. I think something like that. Just shy of 7, I think.
Okay. That's just, I love riding. I love doing long rides. I just can't put my head in that space yet. I don't know if I ever will.
Yeah, you know what? It takes a little loose screw, a couple of loose screws, and we had that with my partner. And that was the year, too, Gary, where it was a really difficult race in that it's at such a contrast. In 2021, when I did solo, it was a heat wave. In 2015, it was heavy torrential rains and flooding in the east. So we got rerouted. I think the crew chief said we got rerouted 16 or 17 different times because of flooding in the east. So we ended up, I think, doing an extra 100 miles that was added to the course because of all these floods. So it never stopped raining the whole time, the whole second half of the race. So that was a really difficult weather race that year in 2015.
So do you still ride a lot now, or do you do any other events now, charity rides, anything like that?
I do a few, mainly it's on my own. Doing the Rockies, it's hard to find time in the summertime to do a lot of long rides. So I've done a couple charity rides. I try to challenge myself just going out by myself and doing some longer rides when I have the opportunity. So yeah, still on the bike, and I might get back on that Ram saddle again. I don't know. Because I got knocked out because of the weather. I'd like to go back and try it again. So I still have that in the back of my mind.
Yeah. So let me think. How old are you now?
I'm 64 now.
You got 1 year on me. Gosh, we could be like the senior citizen pairs in the Ram if you want to do it as a pair again.
Yeah. we could do that 60+ category for sure.
Yeah, we could have AARP back us.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, if they are backing the Stones tour, why not?
Yes, I totally agree. I'm with you.
I'll wear their kit. So, before riding, and you touched on it before, just because we do have one thing in common. Well, we probably have a lot in common, cycling and everything else, is the plane crash. I had an accident with hit by a truck not that long ago where police and paramedics said I shouldn't have survived. And I have no idea how I happened to survive that one. But yours was much bigger. It was a plane crash in Sioux City, Iowa. Can you take us back there?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I was working back then, so a long time ago, 30+ years, obviously. Working back then for the minor league system of the NBA, and the office is based in Denver. And traveling that day with my boss, who was the commissioner of the league. I was the deputy commissioner, and we took off. We were going to took off from Denver, going to make a connection in Chicago, then go on to Columbus, Ohio. And about halfway to Chicago, we blew an engine. The number 2 engine in the DC-10 literally exploded. It had a defect in the core of metal that held the fan blades together. And we tried an emergency landing in Sioux City. Most of the controls in the cockpit were eliminated, so the cockpit crew had very little control of the plane. And I think the biggest factor was our airspeed, Gary. A normal DC-10 landing is about 125 miles an hour when you touch the ground. We hit at 255 miles an hour. They couldn't slow the plane down. If they slowed the airspeed down, they're going to lose control of it. So we hit twice as fast as we should have, and that just spelled disaster. So we hit the ground and flipped over eventually to several pieces. And miraculously, like you said, I shouldn't be here. But 112 people died, but there were 296 people aboard. So almost 2/3 of us survived. And it's real easy for you or anybody else that's watching this podcast to do, if you want to find the videotape of our crash, it's on the internet. Just United Flight 232, it'll pop up. And when you look at that video, like I have, Gary, hundreds of times, literally since that crash, you will ask this question: how could anyone possibly survive? It just looks like mass destruction. And, almost 2/3 of us survived. My boss and great friend died in the crash. He was sitting 7 rows behind me, but I survived in a group of people who perished, and just got my life given back to me.
That's I actually remember when that happened. And I can still visualize that footage, seeing it on the news, hours after it happened when I saw it, and then seeing it again and again and again. And I've actually saw the footage recently, and it is amazing. You would think there's no way even bacteria survived that crash.
Yeah, yeah. And I still feel that way. You know,
Mhm.
30, whatever it is, 34 years later, I still look at that videotape every once in a while and think, that is an absolute miracle. How in the world did anybody walk away from that? And like I said, 180, some of us did.
So, and I'll just get right to the tough questions. How did that change you?
It changed everything, Gary. I'm a completely different person than I was before the crash. My priorities are completely different. Back then, my career was everything. I was a sports administrator and a broadcaster, and it was all about me and my career. And you know, I cared about people, but I had a huge ego, and I just was on the fast track. I was going to be the next Al Michaels or Bob Costas, and I'll be rich and famous, and people will bow down to me. I mean, that's really the way I thought. And that crash completely changed me. It completely changed my priorities. The biggest thing was about a year after the crash. It led me to become a Christian. So I made that decision, which is the greatest decision I've ever made. And then things just changed from there. Just became humbled and saw life differently, and stopped sweating the small things and looked at the big picture, and just lived my life completely different. My kids are born later. I have 3 grandkids now. Incredible blessings. And back then that would have been great to have kids and grandkids, but today it's everything. It's my life. So along with my spiritual conviction. So the crash completely, 100%, 180 changed me after that.
Yeah, I don't know if it was, like I said, mine wasn't. I was hit by a truck. I dealt with the PTSD after that, still do, but I had enough people said I should have died. I was hit from behind 40 miles an hour by an F-250 and just blown across the pavement for 65 feet. The reason why I asked you is I had a lot of change happen to me. It was almost instant, some things for me. I used to be pretty high strung, I don't know if you'd say angry. Yes, I would be. If somebody posted something on social media, I was going to respond that instant because I knew what was best. And somebody took that gene out of me instantly. It's like the wreck knocked it out. Did you feel like instantaneous, like almost like the mood was different, or it was more priorities over a longer term? Mine happened to be just like instant. A couple switches flipped. I was just wondering if that's the same for you.
Yeah. Different for me, Gary, but I really do understand where you're coming from, because a lot of people, fellow survivors from my crash, have the same experience as you instantly. Like the next day, I was a different person. I never felt that. I think I was so shocked by everything that I was in just sort of a daze for a long time. I wasn't hurt seriously, so it wasn't a physical thing, but I just was trying to figure out what in the world just happened and why. So it took me a while for the effects of that crash in a positive way to set in. So I guess I'm kind of a slow learner. It took me about a year before I really had that crash really come crashing down on me again. But I totally understand where you're coming from, which is I think is completely cool. And what's interesting too is I give a lot of motivational speeches. And the one thing that I found over the years that I talk about is that everybody has their own plane crash. You have yours. You just described it. What people have gone through may not be as bad as what you and I have gone through. It may be a lot worse. I know people who've had to bury their kids. I can't even fathom doing that. I would go through 1,000 plane crashes before I would have to bury one of my children if I had that choice. So, but I get it. Everybody has their own plane crash, and everybody deals with it just a little bit differently.
One of the things and this is something I'm really curious to ask you, is for me, one of the things is I was exposed to, and within 8 days of my crash, I met somebody who lost their son, was hit by a truck, almost the same size truck as mine, but hit from behind and killed instantly. And it humbled me so much. And people were asking if I'm okay in this venue where I met him at an event. And I was like, I didn't even want to say anything about me. People are asking, "Oh, are you okay?" Or, you look really scabbed up and whatever. And I just felt so humbled that I was given that chance. Yeah. I've been given a second chance.
Yeah.
And I've been exposed to a lot of people. I'm going to an honorary ride for the 1-year anniversary of a small boy that got killed in Littleton a year ago this Thursday. And to meet those parents and, that they lost their son in a violent traffic accident where he was hit by a car while he was on a bike. But did you feel that too with that, where you're just almost so humbled? I mean, I was humbled because I'm meeting these people. Were you humbled because of the experience of the people who actually lost loved ones and that didn't survive that crash?
Yeah, no question about it. And exactly almost as you described. And a lot of it for me was, and I've met a lot of people who have lost loved ones outside of my crash, and I met them because we have a common death from an accident. But a lot of the families of people who died in our crash gave me the same response that you just. I was just so humbled. I was honored to be able to talk about what we went through and maybe answer some of their questions. And every one of them, I went into it thinking that person's going to look at me thinking, why is my loved one not here? And Jerry is. And they never had that thought. And that I was scared to death of that, but that never happened. It was always, they're so thankful, so sorry that their loved one died, but so thankful that I survived and 163 other people survived. So yeah, same sort of thing. When you tell me, I talk to other people who have gone through something similar to this, lost loved ones, and you can identify, I can relate to it as well, for sure.
That's interesting, because that is the exact feeling as I was feeling as well. It was that I expected to I just wanted to shrink when I met, the first person I met was Magnus White's father, who was hit and killed in Boulder, and they did a ride for Magnus that I actually was involved in. But Michael White, I was like, I didn't know it at this event. I was sitting next to him. I didn't know who he was. And then I realized who he was. And I was just like, I wanted to shrink. I wanted to vanish.
Yeah.
I just was like, shouldn't be here. And he actually was one that challenged me and said, look, you've got a platform, you have a website, and you've lived through it. Now it's up to you what you want to do with all that knowledge. So it's really cool. And I think of that, and I look at what you've done with your platform of being a broadcaster, being well known, and then obviously coming to know Christ and change your faith. And the books you've written about it, I've got 2 of them right here that I've had for a while. The Extravagant Gift, awesome, by the way. And then your most recent, Pedaling with Purpose. I love morning devotionals. I do them all the time. I do one every day minimum. But this has been my morning one for the last couple months.
Good.
And it's just an awesome, quick, cool read. And it's just cool to do just one of those a day. It just really, it starts my day off great. Yeah. But what gave you that push to want to write about it?
That came from RAM when we did, and I had no idea this was coming, Gary, but we won that one RAM in 2015. We had invited just a friend of ours, we being my race partner, Brad Cooper, just invited a common friend of ours to come. He was a videographer. He did commercials for TV stations in Denver. I said, just come along and get some video, and just so we have some record of it. And he ended up with 600 hours of video. So he decided to do.
How many cameras did you have on you?
Yeah. So instead of just throwing a couple social media videos out there, he decided to do a film. He had never done a film before, and he put a film together called Godspeed, and it won a bunch of awards. It was on the big screen for a while. And with that, they wanted us, Brad and I, to write a 30-day devotional, cycling devotional. And that's how it started for me. I wrote those 30 and thought, this is great. I really enjoy this. This is, if I was a cyclist and a Christian, I would be enjoying this kind of thing. So I just sort of did it on my own. A couple of years, it took me a long time to actually put together, but had them back in my mind, and I came up with Pedaling with Purpose, and it came out, 6 months ago or so.
Yeah, it's a great read. And I've done, before I got that one, it almost filled a void, because have you ever read Tony Dungy's devotional?
Yes.
The daily devotional of his. I'm 2.5 years through that because I've just kept it going all the time. And I still go into it sometimes, depending on what day it is. And I loved it. And yours was written in a similar format, which I just love.
Good.
You've got a verse for reference, then your text, and then a good thought for the day, thought for the ride, as I think you put it. But it's I just loved it. And
thanks.
Yeah, if you ever want to go through a full 365 days, give me a call. I'll work with you on it.
Okay.
But no, it's just, those are great reads. And Godspeed, if I wanted to watch that, is that still out? Can I find that on?
Yeah, there's a website called christianfilms.com.
Okay.
And they have it there. You can buy it or rent it there. But yeah, it's still available. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my wife told me she saw it before I did, because I think they showed it down at Compassion International where my wife works.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Cool.
So back to go ahead with where we were going after the devotional. Did you write Extravagant Gift? Was that written before? Or
Yeah.
that was written before
I
know before Pedaling with Purpose, but was that before Godspeed?
Yeah, that was probably 10 years ago or so.
Okay.
I'm guessing Extravagant Gift. I'd have to check the publication year again, and that was something. Well, let me back up a little bit, Gary. I hope this makes sense. But when I look back at the plane crash, and I've done this for a long time now, this is what I see. I see God telling me, Jerry, I finally got your attention. It took 30 years of your life in a plane crash, but I finally got your attention. And now that I have your attention, I want to tell you about my son. And more importantly, I want you to spend the rest of your life telling other people about my son.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why I survived that crash, so that I could tell people about Jesus and try to spread the word of the gospel. And one of the things, and I get invited to churches, and and have that opportunity on a pretty regular basis. But there's also people out there that aren't going to see me at church and are really difficult to get through. So I decided to write this devotional, which I hope anyway, I think is a clear and concise message of the gospel, and just something you can hand to somebody. It takes 5-10 minutes to read through it, as you probably know. Mm-hmm. And you can just hand it to somebody. It's not you're not knocking them over the head with a Bible. It's not intimidating at all. It's just hand one to somebody or send one to somebody and read it. And it's a message of the gospel. So that's why I wrote the Extravagant Gift as an evangelical outreach tool. And it's been great. I mean, I've had pastors, order 100 of them at a time. So that it's been a really good tool that way. Real blessing for me.
That's awesome. I mean, I just love what you're doing. It's just a ministry in itself. And so what's next for you? Is there another book on the horizon?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I thought if I finished RAM and it was a solo RAM winner, at least my age group, maybe it was time to write another book, but then I failed. I dropped out at the second day. So I kind of put that on the shelf. So I don't know. I don't think so at this point, but I'll just see what the Lord prompts me to do. That's
awesome. Well, that's great. And so no big rides coming up, no winter rides, not doing cyclocross.
No. You know what? I haven't decided yet. I might jump in Raw, which is the first 1/3 of RAM. So it's a race across the West. So it's from San Diego to Durango, Colorado, which is about 900 miles on that route. And it's on the same route as RAM, but it's just the first third basically of the race. I can't afford to take 2 weeks off of the Rocky season to do RAM. So I think that's probably out.
When is Raw? When is it?
It starts the same day as RAM does.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're in conjunction with each other. So
you get to deal with the heat
when you get to Durango rather than to the East Coast. So
basically, right through the hottest part of the race.
Yes, yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. So I'm thinking about that. I haven't pulled the trigger on that yet, but that if there is a big race coming up, that would probably be it.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. Rockies next season.
Yeah, let's hope we're bad. We can't get any worse, can we?
I was going to say the bar is pretty low now.
Yeah, exactly. The bar is quite low. I do think if there's baseball fans watching, listening, I do think we'll be better. I think that there are some really good young players, especially some young arms that we haven't seen yet that are really going to make an impact. I think it might be a while. It might be a couple of years before this team kind of turns things around. But there's hope. There really is. And I'm looking forward to being part of that.
I'm going to just spin us back a little bit because I've asked you a couple of times, hinted to see if there was something about a race or an event coming up. When you go on longer rides, you went for what did you say, 40-something today?
Yeah, 45.
45. What is it in you that makes you want to ride? I mean, we all have our whys.
Yeah.
what is it for you that just, what makes you want to get in the pedals and go, other than fitness? You always say, I just want to be really fit, but what is it?
The fitness is a factor, and to keep your weight down. That's important to me. I'll tell you what it is, and I think this will make sense to you. When we had that plane crash, we went off the runway in Sioux City, ended up in a cornfield next to the airport. And the piece of the plane that I was in broke off from the rest of the aircraft, and only about half of us survived there. I think there were 53 people in our area, and 26 of them were survivors, including myself. And a part of, even though I survived, a part of me died in that plane, in that cornfield. And cycling, Gary, just makes me feel alive again. I don't know what it is about cycling. You can probably appreciate this, but I don't know if it's the speed, the exhilaration, the sweat, the pain is part of it for me. If I'm feeling pain, I'm alive. But cycling, I just love getting in that saddle and riding. And whether it's a challenge, it's challenging terrain, or something flat like I rode this morning, love being on my bike. Just there's something about it I can't really pinpoint. It's probably a combination of things. But you can scenery, you can go a long way as compared to running anyway. If you go a 10-mile run, that's a long ways, but 45-mile ride this morning, I covered 45 miles of beauty in Colorado. So that's a part of it too. But I think the biggest thing for me is the psychological impact it has on me. When I get on a bike, I feel like I'm having therapy. I feel like I'm going through a therapy session, and the longer the therapy session, the better for me.
That is very, of all those things you said that you love about it, I would have answered yes. They do all those things for me. It's kind of a combination of all of them. I can't wait to get it. I can't wait to get clipped in and go any day. It's just what I love to do. And I know there's people that get hooked on riding, and I think there's a reason why, and you hit many nails on the head there.
Yeah.
So, well, in closing, is there anything else you'd like to share about your journey and about where you are and where you're going?
Gary, other than I've been trying to be, I'm my number one goal is to spread the gospel, but I also trying to kind of the side spread the love of cycling. I think if people tried it, I think they would, it might change their life. I know, them too. A lot of people who found cycling and it just changed their lives. They lost weight. They found something recreational. They found something to do with social. But riding a bicycle, cycling is such a great endeavor. And if people are thinking about it, I know it can be expensive. You got to buy a bike, and you got to get some accessories and all that. But once you do that, you can ride every day, and it's almost every day in Colorado because of our weather. It's just it's a great thing. It's great therapy. It's great physically. It's great mentally. So I just love the endeavor of cycling, and I want to spread that word as best I can too.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Jerry, thank you so much for being with me today, and sharing your faith and your experience and your story with all of our listeners. I really appreciate it.
You are very welcome, my friend. I had a great time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.